everyone, and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for today's Unpuzzling webinar. It's called Boosting Business Productivity, and we're featuring BDC's Chief Economist. We're thrilled to have such a strong turnout of food innovators with us today. For those of you I haven't met yet, my name is Marcia Drucker, and I'm the Regional Innovation Director for Ontario here at CFIN, the Canadian Food Innovation Network. At CFIN, we fund transformative food tech projects, stimulate collaboration, and foster a growing community of food and beverage professionals. We've built the fastest growing and most engaged food business community in the country. Our core mission is simple. We help Canadian food and beverage companies reach their full potential by connecting them to new ideas, new technologies, and new opportunities that strengthen collaboration and position Canada as a global food leader in food innovation. Canada's productivity gap is one of the biggest barriers to growth for food and beverage processors. It's 28% lower than the US and 18% lower than the G7 average. Today's session will break down why that matters and what small and medium-sized enterprises in the food and beverage sector can do about it. Today, you'll hear from Pierre Cléroux, Vice President, Research and Chief Economist at BDC, who will share findings from BDC's latest productivity report and explore practical, low-cost strategies to boost efficiency, improve margins, and strengthen competitiveness. Before we dive in, a few quick housekeeping rules. So we just launched a quick poll in the chat just to get a sense of who's joining us today. This will help us understand who's in the virtual room. So thank you so much in advance for participating in that. We will save time at the end for audience Q&A, but please feel free to submit your questions throughout the webinar using the Q&A box. We'll do our best to get to as many as possible. All of our CFIN webinars offer real-time text-based translations in over 60 languages, including French. You can access the translations by clicking through the incoming shared link. And last but not least, yes, this webinar is being recorded, so don't stress about taking, a million notes. You will have the recording afterwards that you can rewatch and revisit for any important points. I'd also like to take a moment to thank BDC for sponsoring today's webinar. BDC has been a tremendous partner in supporting Canada's food innovation ecosystem, and we're especially grateful to have Pierre with us here today. BDC is a partner of choice for all entrepreneurs looking to access the financing and advice they need to build their businesses and tackle the big challenges of our time. So thank you again to BDC for making this conversation possible. I'd like to launch another poll at this time. So this one will just be about relating to today's conversation. So this poll asks, what's your biggest productivity challenge? So please answer that as well, and that will just help us position the conversation better today. So while you do that, I am so excited to introduce CFIN's CEO, Dana McCauley, who will be leading this conversation with Pierre. Dana is an internationally recognized food innovation leader whose strategic vision and entrepreneurial expertise have driven wide-ranging advancements within Canada's food sector. Throughout her career, Dana has successfully launched many food products and programs in collaboration with domestic and international food companies and entrepreneurs. She has long had her finger on the pulse of food innovation as a successful food writer and editor, and a television food trends commentator and a senior executive in the food manufacturing sector. Dana is joined by Pierre Cléroux, Vice President, Research and Chief Economist at BDC. Pierre leads a team of experts who analyze economic data to identify business and sector trends impacting Canadian entrepreneurs. A seasoned speaker, he regularly travels across the country to help business owners understand the risks and opportunities presented by the economic environment. Over his 25-year career as an economist, he has held several influential positions that have had a direct impact on entrepreneurs in Canada and abroad. Before joining BDC, Pierre worked for the government of Saudi Arabia as vice president, business analysis in the National Industry Clusters Development Program, and his role was to create program strategies, define sector policies, and conduct financial and economic analysis of industrial projects. So let's get started. Dana, I'm so excited to hand it over to you to lead us through today's discussion.
Thank you so much, Marcia. And thank you to all of you who are tuning in from across the country to learn more about how to make your food and beverage business more productive. I think there was something in the water or the air or the sunshine last summer because CFIN launched our Food 4.0 action plan for accelerating or catalyzing productivity in the food sector last summer. And this great report from BDC also landed into people's inboxes. Of course, the summertime, we're all, a little bit, our attention's divided from our desktops sometimes by the beautiful weather here in Canada. So now seems like the perfect time to come back and drill into this conversation about productivity. And quite interestingly, and I think in a really validating way, the budget that dropped 2 weeks ago from the federal government, or almost 2 weeks ago, also had a real emphasis on productivity. So it feels, Pierre, like you and I, when we were drafting our documents last summer, were a little bit prescient and knew that productivity was going to be a very, very big topic. I think, the zeitgeist always seems to rally around certain topics, and it's often validating when different partners are identifying the same challenge. You came at your analysis of Canada's productivity, some would say problem, I'm going to today say opportunity, from a data and storytelling lens. And so I'd love to give you an opportunity right now from your seat in Montreal to the seats that everyone else has across the country to just give us a little bit of info, level set us on some of the data that anchored your report.
We have been talking at BDC about productivity for a long time, and we wrote a number of reports. But this time, we really wanted to give specific examples of real companies in Canada across the country in different sectors who have taking actions to improve their productivity. So that's the report is. It's mostly about small businesses who have been investing or just actually reorganizing their business or even talking in a better way to their employees. And the only goal was to increase their efficiency, or in other words, they increase their productivity. So we give example of what they did. We also give an example of the results. So how much productivity they have been increasing. And what is interesting is in the report, we can see that there's no single solution. There's many solutions depending which sector you're in, depending of your challenge. So there's many ways to increase our efficiency as a business.
Yeah, that's the hard part, isn't it? Is that there are, many tools and levers that you can pull, and productivity is I don't know. It's something that it seems like small and medium-sized businesses struggle with. I think because, and I'm curious about your opinion here. In my experience, I see that a lot of people get into business become entrepreneurs, not necessarily with a business background, but they have a big idea, they have passion, and as their business grows, they end up wearing a lot of different hats. And sometimes the hat that they should be wearing the most is the one that's kind of the smallest fit. It's that financial and strategic acumen that is hard for those folks to acquire along the way. And it seems like sometimes in increasing productivity, the most logical or the most fundamental reflexive choice that these business owners make is to just kind of throw more people at it or to work harder, work longer. But that's kind of the opposite of what productivity strategies that are outlined in your report would recommend.
Definitely. Productivity is how can you produce more with fewer resources and or with the same level of resources. So it's becoming it's how efficient you are as a business using your people, your capital, your resources to produce whatever you have to produce. And this is I agree with you that people typically don't focus on that. You don't go into a business to focus on productivity. You go in, like you said, you're passionate about something and you go into business. Also, people get caught that sometimes they're so busy just to respond to the demand that
Yeah.
the priority is not to look at efficiency. But actually, it's very important to look at your efficiency because your profit depends on how efficient you are. So if sometimes people they have cash flow issue, they have profitability issue, and it's because they're not as efficient as they should be. And I would say that right now, as the economy is not growing much, the
Mhm.
cost of doing business keep rising. It's especially a good time
Margins
to
get small.
exactly. So it's a good time to look at how efficient we are, and I think that's why there's a momentum right now in terms of productivity. I think it's it's a great time to look at how efficient we are right now.
And it's interesting, some of the conversations I have, particularly with people who are working within government and other people like you who have an economics background, it's almost a responsibility of small, medium, and large businesses to be as productive as possible because grocery prices are something that, is limiting food security. And if we can be more productive as food businesses, hopefully we can at least stabilize, prices. And, and I think when you reframe it that way, it's not just for your business, but it's also for society that you should try to be as productive as possible. Would you agree?
Definitely, and that's why government are talking about it, and they're putting a program in the budget to make sure that to help businesses to increase their productivity. So you're perfectly right in term. Productivity is important for an economy
Yeah,
for the government. It's also important for business because if you're not as productive as you should be, you leave money on the table. You're not as
exactly.
profitable. So you can do it for for the good of the country, but you should
Mhm.
also do it for yourself because if you're not as efficient as you should be, you leave money on the table.
Yeah. So you just mentioned the budget, which is a great opportunity for me to ask you a question about, your report was obviously written before the budget. Um, I have been involved in some roundtables recently, Food Leadership Summit in Calgary specifically, where a lot of people got together and talked about our capital depreciation rules in Canada and how they were limiting technology adoption by the businesses who could kind of most use it. And a lot of people were recommending that exactly these measures come into the budget. Are you aligned with them? Do you have any concerns, or are you still, waiting to get more information about this depreciation and SR&D components of the budget? Like, how meaningful is that part of the budget vis-a-vis productivity?
I think it's a great news. I think it's these programs are good to help businesses to invest because they reduce basically they reduce the risk and the cost of investing to improve your productivity. So I think these measures are great. But of course, you have to take advantage of that, because you have to invest to be able to take advantage of the tax reduction. So,
Yeah.
but I think it show it shows you how important this is for the government in terms of keeping the economy growing.
Yeah. So I think we probably have buy-in from everybody listening and probably CFIN members and BDC clients who aren't on this webinar that yes, we are interested in not leaving money on the table. Yes, we are interested in being part of, big picture economic, health. But, again, back to the point I made about how busy and how many hats these small and medium-sized business owners wear. I think sometimes, there's that trees and forest, analogy that we use so often. And I think it's really true here that when you're inside your business, sometimes it's really hard to know where to start. I hear some business owners say, well, it's kind of like whack-a-mole. I tackle this problem, but this problem gets worse, and I don't know where to start. And I feel like that is, if we could teach the folks who are, most needing to increase productivity, just how to assess what to do. Do you have any tips? There were some great case studies in the white paper.
Yep. The first thing is, a recipe for success is to identify one thing that you want to improve. If you try to do everything at the same time, like using AI and automation for the entire company, it doesn't work. But if you identified one thing that you want to improve, and you identify one challenge that you have, like in the report, we can see some
Break it
people were,
down.
yeah, exactly. Some people sometimes they want to grow, but they don't have the labor force to do that because in some part of the country, labor shortages is still a big issue. Even if the economy is not growing as much as over the last few years. In other, you have a lot of waste, uh, overproduction, or the quality. It's a
Mhm.
problem. So you have to identify what is the biggest challenge for your business today. Sometimes it's to reduce the cost. When you have identified that, you have to find the right solution. And the good news now is there's many solutions. There's automation,
Almost too
improving,
many.
well, maybe too many. What we find is most of the businesses in the report, they have used outside help to help them to identify what is the right solution for the challenge they have. So solutions are quite different. To give you an example, which is one of the report, it's Goma. They produce fresh herbs that is more and more popular now.
Super
When
cool
you
company.
yeah, exactly, so they were growing because the demand is quite strong, but they couldn't find employees. Not everybody wants to work, um, in the agriculture business. So they decided to automate one of their division, but they didn't do it overall. They took one basil that they produce and they totally automate that production. And they realized that they save about 20 employees they didn't have to hire
A lot.
in order to do that. They increased the productivity by 15%. And one of the biggest benefit that they didn't expect is they reduced the contamination in that production because robots have always clean hands.
Yeah.
They don't
They don't
go for
need.
exactly. So that's but they started from nothing.
Mhm.
Automation in the agriculture business is not that easy to do. It's not like when you produce, I don't know, something in the manufacturing sector. They have to innovate really to be able to do that. But the results is great. But you see, the solution is to start small. They started with one production, make a success out of this, and after that you can move on.
And I think that there's a couple of sort of hidden or less vocal lessons in that case study too. I really enjoyed reading it and all the other case studies. Um, they didn't make their business vulnerable. Like they were testing the technology. It was their highest volume, most important line that they started with, which was a bit gutsy. But by doing it just on one line, presumably they could have just moved the basil to another more hands-on line if things had gone really badly, right?
Yeah.
So that was super smart of them, I think, as well. You leave yourself quite vulnerable to all kinds of issues if you try to do it all at once.
You're perfectly right. And all these studies, and when I talk to clients about what they do, there's always a period of time where it's difficult.
Middle.
When you made the change, you made the investment, you made the change, you have to change everything inside that production line. So there's always a moment or a few months that you struggle before you get the benefits. But in most cases, they see the benefits at the end.
And then that leads me to a question, and there might not, I'm putting you on the spot. We didn't go over this question, but it just occurred to me. Is there a typical payback time for adopting technology like that? Like, should you say, oh, a year, 2 years, 3 years? Like, what sort of that self-liquidating period where you aren't necessarily seeing the productivity financial gains, but where you're moving towards it?
Yeah, in average, it's around 2 years, and
Okay.
sometimes it's a bit shorter, sometimes it's a bit longer. What is interesting is when we did this report, um, people were saying that was actually faster than they thought.
Yeah,
So,
that's
because
great.
the benefits typically are very strong. Like in the report, you can see people who have triple their productivity. They
I
produce
know, it's
three
amazing.
times what they used to produce with the same resources. So when the change has been made and it's working well, the benefits are great, and it doesn't take that long to be able to pay back your investment.
Yeah, no, that's great. Something that is inherent in all of the case studies, and something that I personally found really valuable to read in the report was this emphasis. I mean, obviously, you've got to do all the business things, and I love that you've been using the word solution. We've been learning from talking to our members that they don't want to take risks. They want to, implement and adopt technologies that are fully tested, plug and play, whatever the term is you want to use. So they are solutions, not necessarily innovations that need to be tested. But and then there's obviously the business case piece, but then there's the people piece. And I think that I might not have advised our CFIN members enough about that part. I found it really interesting that the report talked about how you don't, as a senior leadership team, figure out all this thing and then just go, surprise, we're making changes. That a lot of these very successful case studies, the employees, like I'm talking like the line workers, were very involved. And I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about that piece because I bet a lot of people miss it.
Yeah, you're perfectly right. People who have success with this, they involve their employees right from the beginning. And
Mhm.
often what they would tell us is the employees were the one who were able to advise where were the waste, for example, how
Yeah.
to reduce the waste, and what can we do to make it better. And
Mhm.
I've seen all kind of example. I remember not in the food industry, but in the manufacturing industry,
Mhm.
where this owner he bought a robot was to work in the warehouse, and he got the robot in the cafeteria for a couple of months, so people got used to see the robot and to talk to the robot before the robot was actually working, because he wanted to make sure that people understand that this is you can work with a robot, and it's safe, and it's friendly. Also, what is very important, what people are stressed about, is to lose their job. So it's important that you explain that this is not going to replace people. This is going to replace some tasks that people are doing, and typically this is really true. Companies who are investing in technology and automation and AI, they grow faster, so they
Yeah.
don't make layoff. They find sometimes they have to define differently the the workload for people, but typically because they are growing, they don't have to make layoff. They continue to hire people, so people are not losing their job, and sometimes they just you eliminate some of the routine part of the job, because robots are not doing everything and AI is not doing everything, but they are very good sometimes to eliminate some part of the routine part of the job. So that's very important to understand for employees, that this is we're evolving, we're improving, we're innovating inside the company. Everybody will find we need everybody, but we need to do things differently to improve
Yeah.
our efficiency. Uh,
To that point, do you find that the people who were outlined in the report that they as part of the budget for these productivity projects that they put something in for professional development and retraining? Because I can imagine when you're just working, with your own hands and the sensors that you bring to work, your eyes and nose and ears, that that's one type of a job. But then when you're working next to a robot, you probably need to be able to troubleshoot when something's not going right there, or you need to learn how to extract data or input data. So, is there a lot of that aspect to these projects?
Almost all of them, they have some financing or some time for training because
Yeah.
the typical task of somebody is going to change. Like you
Hmm.
said, often when I visit companies who have a lot of automation, well, now the workers are using a iPad, for example. They receive real information in real time, and they are looking at the quality of the production. So their tasks have been changing. So they have to learn how to maximize the automation. So in all of this, of course, you have to provide some training to your employees to make sure that everything they know exactly what to do and what is their new responsibilities.
Yeah, some of the most interesting projects I've been seeing among CFIN members are ones that take waste and find a new value for it, something that you used to have to throw away and pay to have picked up by a disposal company, and turning that into a value stream. And on the other side too, I'm just kind of seeing how much safer, and you alluded to this with the basil, how much safer food can be when machines are the ones taking, internal temperatures and scanning for, visual anomalies and foreign bodies and things in the food. I know that the Rosso coffee was mentioned, and I love Rosso. Whenever I'm in Calgary, I stay in a hotel that's right near a Rosso. So I was super excited to see them highlighted. They, uh, had amazing gains, like something like 50% or something. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Because that will be very exciting for CFIN members who are, firmly in the food end of the value chain.
Actually, it's a very interesting case because they have to totally pivot after the pandemic.
Yeah.
They used to have many coffee store, and the pandemic was really hard on them. So they decided to move to basically more to be as a wholesaler for coffee. And in order to do that, they did basically two things. They bought this boiler that is much bigger, so they wanted to be able to transform coffee much faster. But also they use AI to be able to eliminate the less quality beans. So
Hmm.
that was a game changer because they were able to automatically, like it's a machine who does that. They eliminate poor quality, so they really increase the quality of their coffee. But they were able to triple their productivity just by investing in automation, in also in AI for the quality, and also with an ERP to maximize, to optimize their delivery. So they
Yeah.
were able to
Excellent.
really improve their delivery by having an ERP internally and also a software to optimize the route of the transportation of the delivery. So it's a small company, but
It
they
is.
really use technology, automation technology to really improve the efficiency of the business, and they have been very successful.
What I find interesting as their customer when I'm in market, which is like maybe 4 times a year, is that none of that is visible. Like their stores are not high tech; they're very high touch customer service. Like you say, the quality of the coffee is great, and it's really interesting how some companies who are highly automated and very futuristic, they build that into their concepts. But I was really fascinated to read that about Rosso because I had no idea the sophistication of that company. And that tells me that, you can be a very a very artisan style business and still be very productive and still use cutting edge technologies and deliver on that amazing value proposition. So I found that case study, really, really interesting to read.
And it's also really improving the quality because now it's possible with technology and especially AI to improve the quality of your product or service
Mhm.
just because you have more information and for example, it wouldn't be possible to, take away the coffee beans that are less quality by yourself. I mean, it would be
No,
like an
impossible.
amazing job, but by using
Like
technology, it's possible to
like
do that.
sweeping the beach, you'd never be done.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So I see a lot of companies who are using technology now and the main goal is to increase the quality of what they produce, and
Yeah.
it's to the benefit of their consumers.
We have quite a few food tech innovator members who work in that space as well. PNP Optica, Sabermetrics, and it's amazing what they can do with sensors and advanced vision imagery systems. I'm probably not saying it right. One of the things you mentioned a moment ago, and it's interesting because we didn't actually on our poll have supply chain issues there. You mentioned ERP. And one of the other common things I find, and this is particularly not with the new businesses, the new young entrepreneurs are super comfortable with technology. If they've started in the last 5 years, their baseline for, just what they use on a day-to-day basis in their business means that they're pretty agile and their technology adoption readiness level is quite high. What I see among our members, and it's in these like medium-sized food and beverage processors, the ones that have been like 30 years in the market and they've just been sweating their assets for so long that they haven't been adding technology progressively. Not saying they're still using fax machines, but it's almost like that. So there's a different way, I would imagine, that you would work with a client who has a lot of legacy and antiquated systems versus a newer company that's already, set up in the cloud and collects data and understands data. Would you advise companies that are in that more established category, do they need to put a longer runway in front of their projects? And if they were to start, I mean, if you don't already, have the foundational things that you need to have an ERP system, like what's the what's the advice to those companies? Because I instinctively feel like if we could make some of these really well established brands more efficient here at home, that we could diversify their export markets much more easily, right? Because they can be competitive here at home because you can still have paper in your system, but I don't think you can if you're exporting to other countries. It becomes harder and harder.
You're right, and the advice is to start today. I mean, there's no time to waste for two reasons. Like I said, if you're not using, like if you're surfing on what you have built in the past, but you're not adapting to technology or new equipment, you're really not as profitable as you should be. And this is so there's a really a need to hurry for that because the rest of the economy is improving. So if you're not improving yourself, your competitors are. And at one point, this is going to be dramatic for your business.
Mm.
Also, what people don't realize is when it's time to make a transition. We Entrepreneurs are aging. When it's time to think about selling your business, the value of your business would be very different if you have not invested in the last 10 to 15 years. And we see that.
Yeah.
Actually, you would be surprised by this number, but 25% of businesses in Canada, they just die. They're not able to sell themselves.
25%. You're right. I
25%.
am surprised.
Yeah.
That's a heartbreaking number because you think of your business and your brand as your legacy potentially, right?
But if you have not invested in ERP, in automation, in technology, for example, for your invoice, well, the value of your business when you try to sell it is really low. So
Mm.
you should do it for yourself as profit to be more profitable, but you should also do it for because the value of your business when you sell it's very important. And for most entrepreneurs, it's their pension or it's their revenue that they're going to use when they retired. So it's very important to do that just for the future of their business.
Yeah. No, you're right. Because of course, anybody who's built any kind of business, but particularly a food and beverage business from scratch, they have had probably at least 5 years where they didn't make the full amount of income they could have made if they'd had a job, and they didn't have those benefits, and they didn't have all of that. So if you come out at the end of it without some kind of a big payoff, you really have done yourself an injustice, haven't you?
Yeah, definitely. There's an example in the report that I find interesting. It's not in the food industry; they make lenses, but
Oh
it's
yeah, that was interesting because
Dr. Choice, I think. And they're based in Ontario, and the owner was saying that they have invested in now you can make lenses with automation, and that's what they do, and they triple their productivity. But what is not written in the report, but they told us, the owner said that a few weeks before we met, he got a phone call from one of his competitor, and the competitor is closing, and he said,
oh yes,
if you want to come to my business, I have equipment to sell. You can buy whatever you want. He said I went there, and when I look at the equipment, which was between 20 and 25 years old, there's
garbage.
nothing there I could use because I'm really past that. So that's a good example of, if you don't invest, if you don't modernize your equipment, you will close at one point because you won't be competitive. Especially, this time around, it's really hard to stay competitive in this market. So you have to make the investment. You have to improve your business.
Well, and in manufacturing, it'll won't, surprise you. Maybe some others listening will not have thought of growth in manufacturing in the same way, but it's not like this steady curve. You get a facility and you spend all this time getting to, full capacity where you actually have contribution margin, and then if you need more capacity, you actually need another injection of cash. So I'm thinking that for financial planning, and I know how thin margins are, and I know how difficult it is to be in the food and beverage manufacturing space these days or in food service, but there should be, I think, on everybody's spreadsheet that budgets their business, there should be a retained earnings savings account for capital expenditure. And I'm wondering if in your experience, which is, goes way beyond this report, if you have seen in Canadian companies that this is the practice, or that maybe we don't do that enough, or what is, are there any tips from your career working with businesses in all aspects that, should we be putting 1% into that, 2%? I don't know. Anything you've got to say on that topic at all?
Yeah, definitely people who are investing, they keep their money inside the company instead of some entrepreneurs, they will every year, take some money off the book because for themselves, for their family, which is nothing wrong with that. But if you want to be able to reinvest, of the businesses who are investing, they keep more their profit inside the company and they reinvest it. And the idea is to improve your business, and the idea is to make more profit out of that. So I think it's a good practice to do that. You can also, like some example in the report, you don't always need to invest. Sometimes just to reorganize the work you're
There
doing.
was a great case study about that, right? Where they just shifted
Exactly.
around. I can't remember the details. Can you fill me in?
Yeah, well, they provide flowers for grocery
That's right, of
stores, and
course.
they grow quite a bit. And I think the way they were doing, which was probably good at the beginning, but after when you get a certain size, they wasted a lot of time and in terms of
It's
the
just steps, wasn't it? Like the people had to walk too far between stations or something. Am I remembering it
exactly.
correctly? Yeah, that was
So
so.
they, with the help of an outside consultant, they reorganized the way people work, and they actually, it's amazing. Without investing, without new technology or new equipment, they really improved their productivity just because they were much more efficient. By the way, so that's the thing that we advise at BDC. The first thing a business can do is to reducing waste. And when we say waste, is overproduction, waiting time, too
Mhm.
much inventory, for example, poor quality when you produce. If you don't, you're not keen on quality, sometimes will bite you because you have to redo the work or you have to phone your clients 10 times because they got poor service or poor product. So there's things you can do right at the beginning without even investing. So
Yeah,
that's
good
something that
management and
good management and paying attention or at the inefficiency that you have. And we all have, if you come to my business, I'm leading a team of economists. I'm sure we can find ways we can be more efficient. So everybody can find ways to be more efficient in their business.
how uh is there a are there a set of I'm trying to figure out the best way to word this. Are there types of small business owners who, is there a character profile for the ones who are open to, focusing on productivity? Like, is it like, do you just know when you meet a business owner that, or a CEO, that they're going to be open to this kind of stuff? What sets them apart?
You're right. It's a great question. I would say roughly there's 20% of entrepreneurs who will do everything. They will watch every webinar. They will go to conferences. They will be part of a network of entrepreneurs, and they will really are keen on new equipment, new technology, etc. This 20%, whatever you say to them, they won't do anything. And in the middle, there's about 60% who can be convinced.
Right.
So if you have a good argument, if you have a good case study, they will invest. They will make the decision to do something. So that's where I think the 20% they are the one who are the most efficient and they have the
Yeah.
highest productivity, and they will do it anyway. But we have to convince more entrepreneurs to do it. And like I said before, governments are talking about productivity because it's important for the country, but it's also very important for each business because I'm going to repeat this, but it's so true. If you're not as efficient as you should be, you leave profit on the table. You leave money on the table. So you can make more profit by changing a few things inside your business or having a better equipment or even train people on the equipment. I've saw that before. People have the best equipment, but they haven't reorganized the processes around the equipment. So actually, this new equipment, often coming from Germany, is used only at 50% of its capacity, just because
Mhm.
we haven't readjusted the rest of the production line. So there's a lot we can do to improve.
Agree.
And like I said, the first reason why businesses should do that is for their own benefits, for their own profit.
Yeah. Exactly. In this moment where everybody, has their employees asking them for, more than at least cost of living increases in their compensation, and as we talked about earlier, where the price of food becomes, increasingly expensive. It's an interesting time. One of the things that we've been talking about internally as a company is the great opportunity for Canadian brands in this particular moment, where we're trying to rethink how Canada works efficiently and how we respond to trade shocks, and break down those interprovincial barriers. We're really interested in seeing how that can work. And of course, Canada is a very wide country, and our infrastructure for getting food products or any kind of product from one coast to the next, and I guess increasingly often we'll be asked to think about the northern coast as well, especially with the development of things like the port in Churchill. Um, it's interesting to me to start to hear Canadian companies talking about their growth in new ways. Certainly, there's the how do we diversify our export markets, but then, there's this push to understanding how to take a regional brand and turn it into a national brand, which I'm really enjoying that realization that Canada can be its own best customer. So I would imagine that getting more productive and us all working together to figure out some of our supply chain issues and regulatory issues that are different from province to province will help that to happen as well. It's a really interesting time, and a couple of decades into doing what you've been doing, if you had, say, I don't know, three action items, three pieces of advice, or just what would be the things that you would say to the companies who want to be more productive and efficient, want to make their business a great place for their employees to work, and want to contribute to this development of Canada's economy? Like, what's sort of the Pierre advice?
The first thing I think I would say, I would talk to my employees to understand how we can improve what we are doing, because they are much closer to the production than the owner. So that's the first thing, and it's the first thing to provide to make people engage in
And
what
what does
you are
that
doing.
look like, that talk? Is it roundtables? Is it surveys? What have you seen work? Because people who work on the line, they clock in, they
Yeah.
do their shift, and they clock out. So are these owners actually saying, "Hey, come on in, sit around the boardroom. We're going to pay you for 2 hours"? Is that what they do?
Well, you don't do that every week, but you can have regular team meetings to understand, what is the challenges they are facing and how we can improve that. And it goes a long way. It makes a big difference in terms of how people are engaged in the company,
Yeah.
and the productivity will come from them as well, because if they are the one who are doing the job. So I will start there. I will also look, it's a tough time right now. Has been difficult since the pandemic. A lot of different things happen, and but at the same time, technology is much cheaper and much easier to use than in the past. So that's
Mm.
a good example is AI. So we are in a time where actually it's easier for small business to invest in technology than in the past. In the past, you needed to be a big business to be able to invest in technology, which is not the case anymore. In every sector of the economy, you have access to technology that will really help you. So that's something that I would look for. And like you
Okay, so
said,
talk to your employees, look
talk
for good technologies. That's
technology.
too.
And like you said, I would say the economy is changing. We used to work north-south now, and hopefully these barriers between provinces will disappear. It's a great time to look at the Canadian market. Canada is a small market, but it's still 40 million people. So there's opportunities there. And I've seen that some of our clients, they have decided to look much more in the rest of the country for growth, and it's working. So I will look at how they can diversify inside the country, and maybe a fourth one. There's a momentum right now. Consumers are looking for Canadian products.
They
So
are.
Canadians who are able to not only produce Canadian in Canada, but also to market it, to show that that's what they are doing. They actually do pretty well right now.
Well, and it's interesting because we've been exploring how CFIN will support our members with diversifying, into new markets. And it sort of struck me. I'm like, wow, you know what? If you grow your business in Canada, you keep this, you same packaging, same, pretty much the same pricing strategy. You've got to build in some supply chain costs, I suppose. Yeah, so you don't need export approvals or any of that kind of thing. So I see Marcia's here. That means we must have some questions. Welcome back, Marcia.
Thank you. What a great discussion so far. So we do have a couple questions. The first one was already answered in the chat, but just want to make sure that if anybody else has the same question where they can access the BDC report that you're discussing, we've posted it in the chat and you'll get a follow-up email, which will include that link as well. But the next question I'd love to throw to you is a question from Max. So the question is, given the recent federal budget's introduction of tax incentives for capital equipment investment, how do you see these measures influencing the productivity strategies of Canadian entrepreneurs, particularly in light of the findings from BDC's Canadian Entrepreneurs on Productivity study?
Well, I find this is it makes investing for businesses cheaper because if you do, you get a tax credit. So it de-risks your investment a little bit. So I believe that this will help productivity in Canada. We'll see what happens, but I think these are great tools for business to make a decision. Maybe they were thinking about it. They were not sure, but well, this is could help business to make a decision and to invest.
Excellent. So just a quick reminder to everybody, if you do have any questions you'd like Dana or Pierre to answer, please pop them in the Q&A tab. That's just to the right of the chat. For now, I'll jump to another one. Which low-cost operational changes tend to deliver the fastest efficiency gains?
It's really people will find it strange, but it's reducing waste. And when I say reducing waste, it's overproduction, reducing time, wasting time in terms of your employees, too much inventory. So so there's a lot of in the report, actually, if you look at it, when people look at the report, you will receive a link and you can find it for free online at bdc.ca. There's 5 types of waste that people can inside most companies. And this is the first step that everybody should try to do, is look at how probably you won't have the 8 types in your business, hopefully. But if you eliminate or if you reduce waste inside your business in 2 or 3 ways, already you do a great job by increasing your efficiency. So that's the first thing that everybody should do.
I think that, as a follow-on question, it's so enticing to tap into bulk discounts and that kind of thing. But you talk about inventory, and the report does a good job of explaining why you should only order what you need and you should only produce what you have POs for. And I think there's something kind of built into us as sort of bargain culture that's really hard to say, oh, I'm going to pay $2.05 a pound versus $1.99 a pound because I might not need it. So that there's a psychological aspect to all of this that is that's tricky, right?
And you're right. And it's also the pandemic changed the game. People didn't have as big inventory before the pandemic, but the pandemic, the supply chain issues were so great. And actually for a long time, not only for a few months, but it lasts almost 2 years, depending which sector you're in. So people got the habit to hold more
Over order.
inventory. But now most supply chains are back to normal, and so people should be really working hard because it's it's a waste of money to have too much inventory. So that's something that we see. Inventory in Canada very high right now.
They are. That's interesting. Okay, so let's all go clean out our storage rooms.
Very necessary.
November is a good time to do that. To clean.
Although in food manufacturing, they're pretty busy in November. That's more of
That's true.
more of a January thing. In fact, I'm quite amazed and want to thank everybody who has tuned in, because I know that for food and beverage manufacturers, right now is one of the craziest times. You're trying to get all your inventory shipped out to stores and to warehouses and distribution centers. So pretty
It's a busy
amazing. We
time.
had such a great turnout today.
And yeah, no, thank you so much to everybody who joined. It's really great to see. So we have one question that popped up in the Q&A tab, and I think we'll wrap with this one before some quick closing remarks and some more resources that we'd like to share. So the question is from Joe. It says, I've often heard that US companies are more productive than Canadian companies, and I'm curious what the main contributors to this are.
Really good question.
Yeah, and it's true. It's true. When we compare ourselves to the US, we are way below actually. There's some things we cannot change. Typically, US businesses are bigger because they have a bigger market. So a small business in the US is more, it's much bigger than the small business in Canada. So that's something that is related to the size of our country. But they also invest more in technology than in Canada. So if we look at the investment per employees, it's almost twice as much in the US than in Canada. So technology is not everything, but it can really help to increase efficiency, and that makes a big difference between Canada and the US.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, in closing, I just want to say thank you so much to Dana and Pierre for the incredibly thoughtful discussion today, and to everybody in the audience for joining us and for bringing such fantastic questions. We hope that you're walking away with practical insights and maybe even a few new ideas to help you move your business forward. Before we wrap up, just a few quick plugs and then some resources that we'd love to leave you with. So of course, the productivity report, make sure that you download and read it. BDC also has some really great assessments and quizzes that you can take. So we'll share a couple of them in the chat. So there's BDC's Business Health Assessment, just to get a quick snapshot of your company's strengths and vulnerabilities to external shocks. There's also BDC's Entrepreneurial Potential Self-Assessment. And BDC also has a really fantastic entrepreneur toolkit, which has templates, guides, and tools to strengthen operations and decision making. So we'll share all of these in chat, and you'll get them in the follow-up email to this webinar as well. Our next Unpuzzling webinar will be happening on December 3rd, and the topic is protecting your IP in China. We'll drop the link to register for that in the chat as well. And if you're not a CFIN member yet, make sure that you join our growing community of close to 8,000 food business professionals. It's a great place to continue the discussion from today, share any challenges that you're facing, and to crowdsource some great answers and just connect with other small business owners and other members within the CFIN community. Thank you again for spending your hour with us today, and a big thank you again to Dana and Pierre. Have a great rest of your day, everybody, and we hope to see you at our next session.